It's Tony here from Doctor Who with my latest update on the journey from an unearthly child to the Paul McGann TV movie. Um, at some point, I'm going to come up with a better title for the Paul McGann TV movie, and I'm going to make it up of my own free will and accord, and I'm going to use it going forward. Just a warning. Today, we are talking about the Daleks, the second Doctor Who story of all time. Broadcast in 7 25-minute episodes from the 21st of December 1963 to the 1st of February 1964. This is, by most accounts, the reason that Doctor Who survived beyond its initial 13 episodes. By the time this story was finished, there was a kind of excitement in and around Doctor Who because of the Daleks. I won't question that version of events until somebody really gives me a good reason not to. The Daleks were the perfect thing for the time, and it makes for an interesting story. I really enjoy the Daleks. It is, as many 60s stories are, at 7 episodes, a bit too long. There are moments of padding that are quite obvious. But overall, the story is entertaining. It has an interesting series of backwards and forwards discussions on the morality of war, of fighting. The Daleks are, it has been clearly said many, many times, meant to be the Nazis, and at times it's obvious. And actually, if you look at this story as a kind of British war film of the 1950s and 60s, it kind of fits a lot of the same vibes. The Thals, who are the enemies of the Daleks, not by their own choice particularly, are relatively a staunch bunch of upstanding men. There are a couple of women, but they don't get to do much. But yeah, you could put them all in British Army uniforms, and have it in a base, Nazi base, and then destroy some Nazi super weapon, and it would pretty much fit the same bill. Although there is, I think the key scene for me is key scenes for me are the long discussion, the discussions between Ian, Barbara, the Doctor, and Susan, about getting the Thals to help them attack the Daleks in their city, to get back the fluid link. Basically, let's go back to the beginning. This is how this is going to go in these videos. We're going to often get a bit of track. Basically, the Doctor and team land or in a mysterious forest, petrified forest, and they go exploring. Now, it should be noted that as they leave the TARDIS, the radiation meter goes into danger. They don't see this, so problems will ensue. They explore the forest. It's all very weird. Everything seems to be dead. It's stone, dust. There's a strange metallic magnetic creature. And then they stumble on a city in the distance. And the Doctor wants to explore, but Ian and Barbara are like, no, let's go back to the ship and get back out here, and let's try and get us back to Earth, back to 1963, where we want to be. So the Doctor says, okay, fine, blah blah blah, and begrudgingly goes back, but sets up that the TARDIS has got a failure point, and he says, oh no, this now I've forgotten what it's called. Well, how can I possibly forget what it's called, having seen it mentioned? Fluid link. This fluid link has leaked, and there's mercury, and we have to go and I haven't got any mercury in the TARDIS, and I have to go and explore the city to find it. It's so transparently a lie, but Ian and Barbara are forced to go through with it, and so they go down to explore the city. And in the city, which is strange metallic floors, automatic doors, long corridors that, as Barbara says, all look the same. And they stumble around, and at the end of the episode, one of the great Doctor Who cliffhangers of all time, Barbara, who's been separated, who voluntarily has separated herself from the rest of them, a decision that I find slightly baffling. Um, is trapped in a room, and at the end of the episode, you see her, a Dalek sucker, come into. You don't see the whole Dalek; you just see the sucker, and Barbara screams, and that's the end of the episode. So obviously, people are like, "What the hell is that?" Well, let's tune in next week. What it turns out to be, of course, is a Dalek. These are not the Daleks that we will see in the future. These are not galactic traveling, time traveling empire builders. These are a bunch of tin cans trapped in their city because they need static electricity to move around. They need radiation to survive. They are the last survivors of what are called the Dals in this story. They're not called Khaleds. This will come later. Doctor Who continuity is always fun. But the last survivors of the other race that have been on Skaro, and it is named in this episode, are the Thals, who are disgustingly mutated according to the Daleks, but disgustingly Aryan from the point of view of humans. They have been. Rains haven't come to where they were living, so they've come this way to try and find food, and they thought the Dalek city would show it. The Daleks, who still hold a dislike of the unlike, as Ian describes it, want the Thals. If after a bit of jiggery pokery, want the Thals dead. They use the Susan. During this point, all the TARDIS crew have been dying of radiation poisoning. But they've sent Susan to get some radiation drugs that the Thal. It turns out the Thal's left. She then interacts with Aladdin, played by John Lee, who is one of the big Thal bigwigs. Gets us the extra, goes back, gives everybody these drugs. They recover from radiation poisoning conveniently and a bit too easily from something like that. But let's skip over that. And what then follows is the gradual way of the Daleks are obviously now the villains, the Thals are obviously now the heroes. It looks initially like the TARDIS crew are just going to leave because, but it turns out the Daleks took the fluid link. And by this point, by the way, the Doctor's confessed to having made up the whole story about the fluid link. But it turns out they haven't got any mercury either. So they're going to have to go back to the city. So they want to get the Thals to do it and to help them, but that's going to cost lives. And Ian is like, I don't want to say to the Thals, this is what you died for, and hold up a fluid link. This is what you and your friends died for, and hold up a fluid link. There has to be more than that. They have to make the decision themselves to fight. Barbara is strangely like, we need help, blah blah blah, but we need to get them to do it. And she's quite happy to see the Thals sacrificed on the altar of the fluid link so they can all go. The Doctor is the same. The Doctor still at this point isn't how we think of the Doctor now. He still wants to get away as fast as possible. He doesn't see them having a responsibility to the Thals, even though he knows that if the Daleks can find out a way of leaving the city, they will find out a way of leaving the city and kill the Thals. But by the end of this story, he's starting to not be quite like that. And there's an interesting arc of the Doctor's the Doctor's development in the Hartnell era, which we'll come to later on. And basically, it ends up with the Daleks being defeated. End of the Daleks. And the TARDIS crew leave. The end of the episode, as I said with these are all, even though they're now seen as individual stories, these are all rolling together because the end of this story rolls straight into the beginning of Edge of Destruction, which is the next story. So that's, I said I wasn't going to do plot runs, but I think I have to. I've realised it's a really good story. As I said, it is a bit too long. Episode 6 in particular has some very odd moments in it, both tonally and you sort of in there. Why are they there? like the stupidity of the Doctor blowing up the Daleks scanner thing and then hanging around boasting about it for 5 minutes so he gets captured by the Daleks seems odd. I mean, I know the first Doctor is a bit of a arse, and I keep referring to him as the first Doctor, even though at this point that is 2-3 years away. But yeah, it's very odd. But there are some good. The main cast are excellent. Hartnell again, it's very good. Again, as well, there feels like in the early episodes when they've all got radiation sickness, you do feel the stress that they might actually die, in a way you don't often feel about new modern Doctor Who. Or actually, for Doctor Who, not long after this, you kind of expect the companions to survive. You kind of expect the Doctor to survive or regenerate. In this, it kind of feels like they might die. One of them might die. All of them might die. Um, and then there is there's a number of sort of Thals with speaking parts. The performances are a bit more variable than they are in An Unearthly Child, in my opinion. Everyone is suitably staunch, as I've already said, heroic, except actually, I think as Antidus, played by Marcus Hammond, who is a rare character in Doctor Who in that he's scared. Um, Although I will point out that there's a little bit when Ganatus, spoiler, dies, and as he dies, he cuts a rope to prevent Ian and his brother from being dragged down into a hole with him, basically. Um, and that courage is impressive. But what I also noticed this time is that William Russell as Ian, when he pulls the rope up and he gets to the bit where it's cut at the end, you can see his hands are shaking, and that you know this has had an effect on him, even though actually at the end everybody's quite blasé about the whole thing and nobody seems to be that bothered about people dying. This is a sort of odd tendency, that this sort of odd Scooby Doo tendency that sometimes comes across in Doctor Who. Um, so yeah, there are some really dark moments. The Daleks aren't, as I said, aren't what they're going to be in the future. Their rays actually have a stun setting or a leg numbing setting, and also you can be hit by a Dalek ray in this story and not actually die. That will obviously change over time. Um, the one thing that comes across in this with the Daleks that's going to be a long term problem is that long periods of just Daleks talking are a bit grating. Um, Not terrible, not to the point at which you think, "Oh God, I can't watch this," but you kind of think, well, actually, you're going to need to have more dialogue between humans and Daleks, because Dalek to Dalek dialogue is just, it's too. I would like to go to the shop. Okay, what will you be buying? That, I mean, that's a very bad Dalek impression, but you know what I mean. They talk. When they talk too much, it gets a bit grating and a bit difficult to put up with. Um, I will. I think that's pretty much it. I think it's a. I really enjoyed it. I think I'm sort of being a bit sort of damning with faint praise so far, but it is a really good story. You can see why the Daleks helped break Doctor Who into the mainstream. When you look at the viewing figures, they were around 6 million at the start of the story, and they were up to about 10 million by the end. And that role carried on into the future and became Dalek Mania, which is why in 1965 Milton Spotsky made the Dalek film, which I will be watching and probably tomorrow now actually, and reviewing along, and then doing the Edge of Destruction as a separate video. So tomorrow there might be two videos. There's definitely going to be at least one. So really enjoyed it. Recommend it. I want to stop here. This has come up 50 minutes, but so I'm going to keep this bit brief. A bit of advice for anybody who's not done this before and wants to watch all of Doctor Who from the beginning and hasn't watched classic Doctor Who very much in the past. with a story like the Daleks, which is 7 episodes long, don't try and watch it all in one big binge watch, because I don't think that's the best way of watching it. It was never meant to be watched like that. And fundamentally, it was meant to be one episode was meant to be watched on a Saturday, and then everybody would forget all about it, and then hence the recap at the start of the episode, and then roll on, roll on, roll on, roll on. So trying to binge watch 7 episodes, even of a good story like the Daleks, isn't the best way of trying to watch it. My opinion is watch 2 or 3 episodes a day. Even watch one a day if you really want to go through the process slowly. It'll take you a long time to get through all of classic Doctor Who. And it should be noted that the Hartnell era and the Patrick Troughton era are actually relatively long, because at the time they were making like 4 episodes almost every week of the year. So both the Hartnell and Troughton eras are actually very long in terms of episode counts, compared with, even though other Doctors do longer. But the longest is obviously Tom, because he did 7 years. But like even Pertwee's era, even though he did more years, hasn't got as many episodes in it as Hartnell and Troughton. Yeah, I would take your time over it. Don't rush it. Don't binge watch it. I don't think it was meant to be binge watched. Some of the shorter ones you can binge watch, and there are some stories that you can definitely binge watch. But that's my sort of little bit of advice. You can ignore it if you want. I am not the god of Doctor Who fans. So yeah, that was the Daleks. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to watching the film. I won't say anything about the Doctor Who, the short colorized version of this, because it wasn't my cup of tea, and I don't think it's fair to judge it because it's not my cup of tea. I think if you want to watch the Daleks and be introduced to it without watching the initial 7 episodes, that it's probably a good way of doing that. As I said, not my cup of tea, because I prefer the longer original. But I'm an old man, so take that as you will. So there you go, the Daleks. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow to talk about the Daleks, the movie, and Edge of Destruction, or one of them, or both of them, whatever. Have a good day. Bye.